Guy here. Today I'm here with John from Bulldog Mindset, uh, and we're going to be discussing a number of topics regarding everything ranging from what's currently happening in our society to social labels and his thoughts on self improvement, among other things. So we'll just go ahead and cue the intro, and then we'll start. All right, John, thank you for being here with me today. So please go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit better. Tell everyone about, who you are, what you're about. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So I'm John Sonmez. I basically right now I run a company called Bulldog Mindset. And the focus there is really on teaching men to transform themselves, really to go from what I call the victim mindset to the bulldog mindset, which basically means, it's really deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy, the idea that should become strong within ourselves and not be subject to fate and the things that are external to us that we can't control, right? So it's a lot about taking responsibility for your life, and that empowers you and allows you to achieve success. And so I really talk about topics that are related to men becoming men. I think there's a big travesty of boys staying boys, even into adulthood today in society. And and I don't think there's a lot of guidance for how to become a man. There is an actual process to that I think is valuable. And then teaching men the important things I think that are important in their life, which are obviously developing mental toughness and discipline, right? Those things are going to carry you throughout your life. The physical aspects of developing a good physique and health, the financial aspects of understanding how to invest, how to build a business for yourself, how to become financially independent if that's what you would like to do someday. And then the relationship aspects, whether that be depending on what you want in life, but at least knowing how to deal with and understand the realm of women, whether you want to have relationships with them or not. But if you do, then how to best pursue that and to really red pill type of knowledge, I would say, in that area. So that's what I focus on. And my background was I was a software developer for about 15 years. I was a completely nerdy, shy, socially awkward guy, and I started reading a lot of books. There's a lot of things that happened in my life, but one of them was I started reading a lot of books, especially books like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, some of Tony Robbins stuff, Awaken the Giant Within, and probably at this point over 1,000 books and on personal development. And it really changed and transformed my life. And it helped me to go from the victim mindset to again what I call the bulldog mindset now. And that allowed me to transform completely, not just physically. I mean, you can look at I've got some photos of some incredibly fat photos of me, completely out of shape, but just to change completely to who I wanted to be, and to step into my role and to be a lot more successful, to build successful businesses, to eventually retire young, and now I really want to help other men, if I can, to achieve what they want in life. And that's the short version of my story there. So
Okay, awesome. There's something very weird. Well, and I shouldn't say weird, but interesting. I noticed that you just said. So when you started off labeling out, what you're about, what you're trying to achieve, you put relationships, the you put the concept, not you did not say that it's less important, but it was not the first thing you touched on. You didn't say getting laid. You didn't say seeking out a relationship. You didn't say that. The first portion of what you talked about was literally based around self-development, transforming your body, your mind, and other aspects, and then you brought in relationships.
mm-hmm.
Now, I noticed the reason why I find that so profound is that often a lot of other people within this sphere, they'll often start talking about immediately how you can get laid and get the woman that you want, and then use these things in your life. But I find that that's one of the worst ways to look at it. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. This is, gosh, Me going down this path, first of all, started as I have another company called Simple Programmer, where I teach soft skills to software developers. And one of the things that I got emails from guys all the time, right? And they would tell me about all of their problems with women and things. That's why I started making videos on the topic, since I had sort of mastered that area in my life. And I had gone from someone who was really, I mean, not very successful in that area to someone who became a lot successful in that area, to be honest. So I sort of had some experience there. And one of the biggest things that they would tell me all the time is I would get these emails where these guys would be like, because I'd be like, oh, you got to like overcome your fear. You got to approach, you got to, you got to man up. Like you're going to have to face it. And they'd send me these emails and they'd say, John, here's my plan. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get 6-pack abs. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get really ripped and jacked, and then I'm going to make a lot of money. And then I won't have to worry about women because they'll come to me. And what I found was, first of all, that's the wrong approach, because that is that approach is like, it's like trying to do these things so you can get women. It's seeking external validation, right? That's why do they want the woman, right? It's not because they deserve it. It's because they're trying to do these things to win her, to impress her, to, they're devaluing themselves. And so it's not going to work. Okay. It's just not, you have to actually have the courage. You have to build actual true character within yourself to be a man of value. And second, it's seeking after the wrong things, right? Because, again, like I say this from the perspective, and I understand that a lot of people can't understand this because they haven't gone through it. But I literally went from the incel type of guy, right, to a guy now who is very successful, who is a multimillionaire, who, I don't have to work for anyone else, who, relationships, that aspect of my life comes extremely easy now, and is in really good shape, and is, I'm just training for an ultra marathon right now. Like I improved in all of those areas in my life, and I can tell you that none of those things actually mattered. What mattered was building up myself, my mental toughness, my emotional mastery, right? Developing myself as a person, and always shooting towards further goals to improve myself. Like the growth is what's important. That's what makes you have fulfillment in life. It doesn't matter what you attain. You can get the most money in the world. You can have the hottest girls in the world. You can have whatever it is that you think that you aspire to, and you will not be happy. And that's why so many rock stars and celebrities kill themselves, or they get so lost into drug culture that they've basically drowned out all of their consciousness, is because they are not finding fulfillment in those things. And so, to kind of loop around to what you're talking about, the reason why I mentioned women in relationships last is because that's what most guys think they want first. And that's where, that I don't really like a lot of the terminology like simp and cuck and stuff like that, but that's where that mindset does come from. It comes from being thirsty, seeking after that thing, thinking that will fulfill you. And believe me, being a guy that didn't have that and then had a lot of that, I can tell you absolutely it does not. It only puts you into a deeper despair as you start to really question what is the meaning of life, and what is my purpose if this didn't make me happy and it should have. And so it's a trap. It's a trap to believe that some relationship or some woman's going to make you happy. Now, at the same token, I don't encourage guys to completely just abandon that aspect of their life, because I believe that if you understand female dynamics, a lot of the red pill type of psychology, and you don't take it personally, because it's not personal, right? A lot of people get angry about it, they get upset about it, but it just is the way that nature is. Just like, there's species of or spiders, right? What is it? Not the brown recluse, but the black widow. After they mate, she eats the smaller male spider. I mean, that's pretty freaking vicious. There's insects, bed bugs copulate by the male penetrating the female's abdomen with his sharp penis, literally like cutting her open, and a lot of times that she dies. This is nature. Like, it's impersonal. It's just how it is. And so, I'm going off in a few tangents here, but I'll try to bring it back together. Basically saying that, the thing to focus on as a man is being the best man that you can. And that means having high standards for yourself, pushing yourself to constantly grow and reach those things. And women can be a nice accessory to your life, but they should never, ever be the center of your life. And it can be the center of your life because you want women so much. It can also be the center of your life because you obsess so much on how much you hate them, right? The balance is to make yourself and your personal development, your purpose, your mission in life as a man, the center of your life. And then a relationship, if you want one, or multiple relationships or whatever, be an accessory to that. And that's why, as you mentioned, I mentioned that last. So
No, I mean, you just said you just said a lot of amazing things there. With that said, we have some people in the chat. We have this guy, and I even some of my own guys. Many of them are my own guys from years ago. Many of them despise me now because I dropped the label. But there's one guy called Coiled Steel. Are you able to see the comments?
yeah, I can just see him now. Yep. I'm
All
the
right.
actor. He says I'm the actor in the Walking Dead series. I get that all the time. John Bernthal. Yeah. Shane or Punisher.
Mhm. Punisher. And then he also goes on to say, also a PUA selling advice to thirsty men, right?
This is a good way to dismiss what I'm saying, because what I'm saying, right, if you have a problem with exactly what I'm saying about developing yourself as a man, right, then sure, okay, let's discuss the actual issues. But if you're just gonna like throw out that, this is the problem that I have, I think, with a lot of the MGTOW community, is that what does that mean? To just like, I've heard this so many times. Also, a PUA selling to advice to thirsty men, or this is just the PUA businesses being heard, and all, like, it's just a repetition. It's an echo chamber, right? Like, you don't have an original thought, man. Like, give me an original thought. Give me something to actually work with. Like, have a logical thought that you can put together and say, what you said about this, I disagree based on this point, rather than saying in all caps, also a PUA selling advice to thirsty men. I mean, do you want me to address that? Really? What do you want me to say? That, hey, why do I even care? Like 2% of what I do is dating coaching, whereas 98% is making you a better man. I can say that, but it doesn't matter because you're not in the mind to actually absorb and believe that information. So I don't know, if you give me a good argument or something to discuss, I'm happy to debate it with you. But that kind of stuff, how do I respond?
Well, here's the thing. Do you even respond? And here's why I ask. I'm sure you get tons of comments like these. You have your own channel and your linked in the description if you guys want to go check out John's channel. But I'm sure you deal with this all the time. And after a while, I'm pretty sure you just stop responding to some of it, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much, because like I said, it's just an echo. It's like, I just made a video the other day, which was quite unpopular, about Jordan Peterson. Okay, now I tend to like the guy. I tend to like a lot of things that he says, but I don't agree with everything. And I called out a lot of the things that I found as hypocrisy within him. And so many people turned on me, and it was surprising because the people that turned on me were a lot in my quote audience. And they're like, oh, well, you must be in our ideological camp, John, because you are, just like, we want to label people, right? Okay, oh, you must be a PUA guy, you got to be a MGTOW guy, you got to be right, and these labels. And people don't really fit into neat labels. And one of the problems with, and again, with this kind of commentary and things like this, is I was describing to my private men's group, my Bulldog Mindset group. I was telling them in a video on Facebook today, talking about the Jordan Peterson video controversy, as I said, here's what happens, and this is the problem, and this is, I think, what's happened a lot with the MGTOW community, honestly, is that you start off like this. You hear someone's message, you hear the words that they're saying, and you resonate with it. You say, you know what, that guy's wise. That's what this person is saying is correct. This is good. And you keep on listening to it, and then you like the guy. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I listened to Jordan Peterson. I liked what he said. I've listened to some MGTOW guys. I've liked what they've said. But the problem lies therein where the role reverses. Okay. So what starts to happen is now you start listening to the guy, and then you say, I like what he says because he said it. Right. And that's his distinction, right? When you're listening to the words, and you decide you like a person because of what they're saying, because it's rational, because it makes sense, that's a good thing. When you start listening to the person and then you decide that their arguments and words make sense because it came from the person, that's a problem. And that's unfortunately what happens with most cultures and most philosophies, right? Is that they end up being taken over by the masses that don't actually start using their brains. And this is what's happened. And this is why, like you said, these comments just flow. And it's the same thing. It doesn't matter what I say, because what's happened is now you got all these repeaters. They're just repeating what they've heard. They're not actually thinking, not actually coming up with original thought. They're not actually coming up with real debate issues. Instead, they have attach themselves to some MGTOW guy who has a magnetic personality, who has some charisma, because he said some logical and smart things. And then they started parroting what he's saying and believing everything he says to be true because they like the guy, which it's hard. It's difficult as a human being to be logical enough. We're emotional creatures to separate those things out, but we must do that if we want to actually improve ourselves and to grow as people. Whereas, again, like I say, with comments like this, and I get them all over my YouTube videos, this is not constructive. It doesn't help anyone. The people that are angrily making these comments and saying these things, they're not in good places in their life. They're not improving themselves. A person that is on a good path, that is truly improving themselves and helping other people and improving the world around them, doesn't need to do that, right? So in a way, I feel some empathy for these guys, but they're also to some degree far beyond my help because they're not hearing.
So you're so polite, man. You're so polite in the way you talk. Me, I would just call them straight up losers. And then now, and you know, it's it may not sound nice and it may sound harsh, but here's the thing: if you are a man or a woman, because a lot of
Mhm.
women fall into this toxic trap of gender politics and social ideas,
Mhm.
and you spend all your time listening to red pill content, not improving your own life, and then things go downhill.
Right.
These are the same men that I find turn around and blame everyone else, including society, for their problems, and women, because
Mhm.
somehow they had no say in how their lives turned out. And I find this just mind-boggling. I mean, I think that you might understand it better because you mentioned the victim mentality, going from the victim
Right.
mentality to what did you call it? From victim to
To the bulldog mindset is what I call it. So, but it's a stoic mindset, really, is what it is.
I mean, how how do you even start with these people? Can they even be saved? I have a lot of these subscribers. Obviously, you have people just like that as well. That
Yeah.
they they agreed with you until they didn't agree with you anymore. I mean, is there any hope for these people that have been listening to this content for years and just basically have made up their minds? I often feel that a lot of them won't learn their lesson until they're sitting in a FEMA camp or something, because hey, I'm serious,
Yeah.
because they can't afford housing. There's a quarantine going around. This is not the last of the quarantines. And if you don't have housing, you don't have a job, you're going to end up in a temporary government housing facility, or you're going to end up homeless, or in just really bad conditions. And then you know at this point, like, it's even more difficult to pull yourself up. And these men, I honestly don't think most of them have it in them.
Yeah.
I think that many of them will they'll fall down to the very bottom. And I've experienced homelessness before, all right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And the thing is that when I experienced homelessness, something it hit me. You often think that you can't go any lower. Like, wow, this is rock bottom for me. Homelessness is rock bottom. And that's when I looked around and I saw all these other people, and I realized as long as you're alive, there's always something lower. You can fall
Yep.
even lower. And you have to make up your mind at some point that this is my cutoff. I never want to be here again. But I look at these men falling deeper and deeper and deeper, and every day it's just like more and more and more. Do you think that there's any hope for these guys at all?
That's a tough question. I honestly hope that there is. The last video. So gosh, there's so many points to address here. Let me start with that point, which is the last video that I put out, this last MGTOW video, where I compared it to being a cult. There were some people that actually commented on it that had subscribed from some of my older MGTOW videos that had put nasty comments before on there, but had subscribed to me just so they could watch and see what other kind of stupid stuff I was going to say and comment on my other videos. And, you know, some of those guys actually end up watching a lot of the videos about improving yourself and you know, achieving financial independence and some of the things that were not MGTOW comment or content. And then when they saw this video, they actually commented on and said, okay, I've actually converted. I actually, you know, understand what you're saying now. And I see that I had the victim mindset. So there were a few of those. So that gives me hope. It does give me hope, right? It's a very small percentage, right? So it does give me hope. And, you know, and here's the thing I'd say, you know, well, one thing before I forget it, which is you'll enjoy this book, and I would recommend it to any of these guys, is Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Okay, now Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, and Man's Search for Meaning was a book that he wrote about his experience in Nazi concentration camp, where they did all kinds of horrible things to him, right? You talk about hitting the bottom. I mean, this is lower than being homeless. This is literally you being stripped naked and being tortured and subjected to all kinds of things, watching people, your family, you know, be killed in front of you. I mean, it's horrendous. Okay. And his whole message of the book is that you decide if you're going to suffer or not. His whole message is that I'm still not a victim. He was staunchly defending his ability to not be a victim, even under those circumstances, because it's a choice. Like he said, it doesn't matter. They can't do anything to me. They cannot change what's in here. I get to decide how I interpret the situation, and I always have that power, and no one can take it from me. And it's powerful. It's powerful because it makes you understand what it is that any kind of blaming women or society or anything besides yourself for your condition is the victim mindset. And here's the parallel. This is the shocking parallel. In fact, I had a video, again, not the most popular video in the world, but where I said that MGTOW are male feminists. And it was a little bit, I explained in the video, but it was misinterpreted. I'm not saying that they're feminists in the sense that they espouse the feminist values and system. What I'm saying is that they're just like social justice warriors in the sense, like someone actually commented on one of my videos and he said they're like antimatter social justice warriors. And that's exactly right. Because the thing is, the reason why, and believe me, I'm in a war on both sides. Okay, I'm a fairly well hated man. All right, I get a lot of. I just was speaking to the police today about a death threat because it looked like it might be a relevant one. So, it just as I was on my run. So, anyway, I got canceled, quote, canceled by the social justice warriors and the feminists on Twitter with my simple programmer business for being a sexist, you know, red pill type of guy, right? For the exact opposite of what I get, you know, the flack from on the MGTOW for being a blue pilled cock, right? It's like, you know, both sides are pushing. But the problem is that these people who, you know, canceled me, and, you know, it cost me several hundred thousands of dollars, right? Got like my books unpublished, got my courses unpublished from platforms, like some serious damage from canceling me. These social justice warrior feminists, they have the victim mindset. They believe that men are doing them wrong, that society is doing them wrong, that there's discrimination, that there's racism. They're believing all of these things, and they're believing that they're disadvantaged, and that there's, you know, people fear transgender and they're handicapped in all these ways. They're believing all of these things are responsible for their situation in life, except for them. It's me because I'm racist. It's me because I'm sexist, right? And applying these labels and trying to discredit and destroy and outshout people who disagree with them. They won't hear a different viewpoint. You're evil if you have a different viewpoint. And there's an exact parallel to the MGTOW community now. Not everyone, okay, but a lot of the guys that are coming from that you could see on my YouTube videos on the comment section. I mean, it's like people say, "Oh, that's not everyone," and I understand it's not everyone. But when you look at a majority of the comments in a majority of those communities, and I've spoken on some, you know, on some MGTOW channels before, and you know, seen the, you know, the hatred there, but it's exact same. It's the antimatter exact same. It's social justice antimatter. It's the exact same victim mindset. It's the exact same. The society has done this to me. Women have done this to me. Society needs to change. I'm not going to play this game. And this whole exact thing, and shouting people down and canceling people. This was the thing that shocked me the most. I was like, surely these manly men are not going to come over to my channel and try to cancel me, but they did. They reported my channel, content, tried to get my videos removed. Like, really? Like, this is amazing, right? So it's the same exact mentality. So what am I against? Am I against MGTOW? No. Am I against social justice warriors and feminists? No. I'm against victim mindset. I'm against people adopting the victim mindset. And that's the thing that we need to cure. If these guys are going to have any hope, that's what they need to do. And one of the ways that you fix this, okay, is that you stop taking things personally. You look at things from an objective viewpoint, right? One of the, I read The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi, back in the day. And my reading, when I read it, I was like, that's interesting, right? That was my response to it. Okay, I get this now. This makes sense. It wasn't anger. It wasn't being upset by this. It wasn't feeling I was tricked by the world. I was like, now I understand. I have the rule book to this game. Okay, and now I can play this game as best as I can. You don't have a choice to opt out of the game. People that think they can opt out of the game, they're kidding themselves. You can't ever opt out of the game. Opting out of the game isn't an option. You can either play well or you can play shitty. And if you refuse to play, your turn gets skipped, but you're still losing. You're still behind. It doesn't work. Life doesn't work like that, where you can you can re-roll your character. It doesn't happen, right? And that's the thing, is like, to understand is that that victim mindset doesn't serve you. And it's like, okay, so hey, and it's the same thing I'd say to feminists and social justice warriors. The same thing I'd say to a lot of the MGTOW guys is like, look, okay, what hand have you been dealt? Okay, where do you live? What time? What era? Whatever. Your hand is your hand. Okay, it's what you've been dealt. Maybe you're black and you're a transgender woman. Okay, on that side, or maybe you're an incel guy that can't get laid and you don't have the Chad genetics or whatever it is, and women are all whatever on Instagram, and they have super high standards now, and they as far as men, and they're whoring themselves out. Okay, whatever it is, I don't care. That's your situation. What are you going to do about your situation? How are you going to maximize your situation? And if your choice is, oh, well, I'm just going to work on myself, and I'm not going to care about women, and I'm going to improve myself, that's totally fine. That's an okay answer for me. I don't think it's the best. It's not an answer I would choose, but it's not. I don't think it's the best answer, but it's fine. I don't have any problem with that. But if your answer is, I'm going to blame everyone else and be upset and be angry, anger is weakness. Why? Anger is the ability for someone else to control you.
It's funny you say it like that. You said a lot there. I do want to say something about the victim mindset, though, because I often like to describe these people today as powerful victims, because despite the fact that they are victims, like so many so-called feminists, they have the ability, one, they are very privileged, two, they have many privileges that other people don't have. They have many platforms to speak from that many other people don't have. And it's interesting because you mentioned the victim mindset, but is it entirely a victim mindset, or is it more at this point where it's a victim profiting culture? Because there are a lot of people now who are professional victims, and they basically say they go against every logical and rational explanation whatsoever. And you can just look at them when they're talking, they'll like laugh in your face. So is that truly a victim mindset, or is that something else at this point? Because these people know that they know that they'll say that, I'm a victim of the gender pay gap. They know that doesn't exist, or I'm a victim of women, of this and this, and they use the most ridiculous things at some point, or propose the most ridiculous arguments. So what the heck do you think? What do you call those people? The powerful victims?
They're frauds, right? They don't actually even really believe that they're victims, right? But they're using that. We used to hold up as a badge of honor someone who was strong and heroic. Now the victim is reserved as the place of honor at our tables, and it's a sad world that's become the case. One of the greatest examples I think of is like, do you remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger got kicked in the back?
Oh, you mean when that kid jumped up and did the thing?
Yeah, jump kicked him. I think it was in South Africa or something. Some kid jump kicked him in the back, and
Yeah.
this was like a couple years ago or maybe last year. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is pretty old. He's a tough guy, but he's old, right? I watched that video. That hurt. That was like a drop kick, like I mean, or a jump kick. Like he got kicked square on in the back, unprepared. That hurt. Arnold Schwarzenegger briefly shows a flash of pain in his eyes, and then he completely ignores it. Then he was interviewed on the media, okay, and they played the video for Arnold Schwarzenegger to watch, and they said, what were you thinking when this guy drop kicked you in the back?" And he said, "I didn't notice it." Right? He noticed it. This is the mindset of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He says, "I am not going to be a victim. I don't give a fuck if some guy kicked me in the back. I'm not going to acknowledge that he did it because I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to have people be sorry for me. I'm not going to have people be sad or upset. That's how dare someone kick Arnold Schwarzenegger and who kicks an old man? Fuck that shit. I'm not a victim. I didn't even notice that he kicked me. Did someone kick me? I didn't even fucking feel it. Of course he felt it, but he has enough dignity and pride in himself that he will not ever be labeled as a victim, regardless of if he was victimized. That's what we need to be as men, right? When I hear men, whether they're MGTOW or social justice warrior, feminist men, crying about shit that was done to them, I am like, what the fuck, man? Step up and be a man. Don't allow someone to take your dignity by calling you a victim. It's embarrassing to be a victim in my mind, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that men have gone through shit and have been hurt, and that women do some pretty fucked up shit. I've been through a lot of those experiences, but those are not my badges of honor. My badges of honor are the men that I've helped out. It's the things that I've done in society and helped other people, and how I've improved myself, and the fucking marathons I've run, and those type of things. It's not. I don't take any kind of pride or any kind of. I don't deserve any credit for being wronged by someone. Right. That's the problem. Is these people, like you said, they're professional victims. They're using this because it's their currency, it's their form of currency, and we need to stop giving credit to this form of currency. We need to start rejecting this and not allowing these checks to be cashed.
No, I agree entirely. I mean, it's been almost 3 years now. It's been a while, but I used to have a much larger MGTOW channel, and I started to change. I started to say, you know what, this victim mindset. I saw what was coming, and I've been telling people for years that we were going to end up in this type of depression, because that's what it is, and a situation like this, and people didn't listen. And the moment I started telling people that maybe you need to cut back on all the MGTOW and red pill content and instead focus on your self-development,
right?
That was the immediate moment that everything completely crashed and burned for me. Mm-hmm. And it just went downhill in the MGTOW community and the manosphere. And they began flagging my channels to the point that I could no longer run my other channel. That channel has been gone for years now. They kept, and then they kept flagging me when I created another channel, and then they successfully had my channel removed from YouTube, and I literally had to find a Google employee to get reinstated because they were so successful in making false claims of, oh, this he said this here, he said that there. You remember how bad the YouTube system used to be. It's still not the greatest. They're trying to improve it, and I find it so interesting that the very moment that I started talking against spending your time in the MGTOW mindset, in that so-called red pill mindset, what it's become today, it was met with not only alarm but hatred, rebuke, and it was so weird because I was talking about self-development. I was talking about getting your life together. And the blowback and the pushback was immediate. And that just tells me there's a lot of people who not only want to live that way, but they are afraid of anyone challenging that. No matter how miserable their situation is, they'd rather keep the bag of shit that they know than the world outside that they don't. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. And that's, I mean, like I said, I went on TFM's channel. He invited me on there, and we had a discussion. As soon as they figured out that I was not 100% support in their stances, it became, this whole, attack the guest type of situation. And it's sad. It's pathetic, right? One of the just crazy things was, like, I'm a real estate investor. I've made several $1 million in real estate, and I was talking to him about. He's like, "Oh, well, let's talk about a different topic." And, like, so I'm telling him about real estate investment, and what is a solid strategy to do that. And I mentioned, getting a loan from the bank, and using leverage, which is just common sense, right? For anyone that's has any degree of economic education. And the backlash was like, "Oh, debt is so bad." It's like, you know, and he made a whole video about, like, how pointless, how it can't possibly work, and how debt is so, and I'm like, come on, man. Like, okay, I get the whole thing with being upset at women and stuff like that, and not agreeing with me about, and even the sex doll thing. That was like, okay. I mean, that doesn't seem very manly to me, but fine. Okay, whatever you want to do. But come on, like, at least on personal development, at least on, like, an objectively, like, okay, you don't have to agree with me on everything, but fuck, man. Like, as far as finance and building a business and investing, you should probably follow someone who's actually, like, done it, not someone who's living in their mom's basement. Like, but they won't hear any of it. It's like, it's such a close-minded type of viewpoint that it's so difficult. And I wish I could, I came there earnestly wanting to help them, right? Because I want to see guys, like, improve themselves. I mean, this is what I do with Bulldog Mindset. Like, I'm all about the whole reason why I created the channel. In fact, I mean, to give a little bit more background, I quote retired about 4 or 5 years ago. Actually, it's 6 years, because I'm 30. I'll be 40 this year. So, when I was 33, so I guess it'll be 7 years. Damn, shit, I'm getting old. But anyway, I basically, I figured out, like, went on this whole life journey, and I realized that just playing video games and drinking Mai Tais on the beach was not a life, and I was depressed, and I realized that you need to have purpose in life. And so I came back, and I started working on my businesses, and I actually developed Bulldog Mindset because I wanted to help men. I saw this as an issue, and that's what I'm doing. Like my whole focus is on helping men to develop themselves, right? To be able to get what they want in life. If you don't want to get women, that's fine. It's not a big deal. But at least, like, don't tell me that you don't want to be financially successful. Don't tell me that you don't want to, like, be physically fit, or to improve yourself, or improve yourself mentally, or one of the greatest things that you can do is to develop the mental toughness and emotional mastery to be like a stoic and not be affected by the things that are happening around you, where you can have an inner peace and tranquility within you, and to be able to help your fellow man, right? But when I look at these communities, I look at these guys, it's like, there's no one helping their fellow man. There's just hate, and again, I'm not saying that we all have to be like a super, like, liberal love fest, although there's a lot of hate there too. It seems like victim and hate seem to go together for some reason, but I don't see any kind of love there. I don't see any kind of helping your fellow man, and truly, you're bonded in hatred, and that's not a bond that is a good bond. And so, yeah, unfortunately, what you're saying is absolutely true. And it's sad. Like, the other part of it, I think, that's really sad, is that let's not just be an echo chamber, right? Let's have some debates and actually discuss the issues, right? So, like, for example, in your case, if you're saying some things like, hey, guys, maybe we shouldn't talk about red pill stuff so much, and be hating on women so much, maybe we should talk more about personal development. It's like, okay, once you understand the red pill stuff, it's not like you need to fucking go on and on and on about it. Like, it's pretty simple shit, right? Like, you can just, like, understand this stuff, maybe 4 or 5 videos worth of content, a couple of books worth of content. That's it. But once you got it, then let's move on. Let's move to the next stage, which is improve ourselves. So it would be better to have these discussions. And, like, anyone that's trying to shut down speech, that doesn't want to hear the other side, that's problematic, right? Because that's where you end up with thought that becomes an echo chamber, and you don't actually have growth there. And that's what's happened. It becomes stale, and then you have people that are just stewing in that bitterness and hate, and it just doesn't do any good. I don't have a problem again with, like, who the fuck, it doesn't care. I don't care if you want to call people names and shit, except that the problem is that it's not actually helping you or improving you or improving anyone. That's the biggest problem I have, is like, okay, all right, let's do some shit then. Let's actually improve our lives. And yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, that's the thing. Is, so there's that whole saying, the biggest sin that a crab can commit is to make a leap for the rim of the bucket, right? Because when a crab does that, all the other crabs pull them down. So,
and everything you said is is so true. What I this is a term that I coined years ago when this started happening to me. I said, you guys are too attracted, are too in love with your grief entertainment. And hear me out. People spend hours and hours. Think about this, Sean. This changes your mind, because a lot of these videos, this is YouTube. It's also entertainment. So people are entertained by this. So this is what makes them happy. This is what they enjoy. They enjoy watching videos about these things, about the misery that's happening in the world, and they become adapted to it. So it's not just trying. So for many of them, it's not even really about social politics or any of that. This is just what they enjoy. They enjoy this content. They enjoy this perspective, and it's like trying to change that, when in reality, this is the choice that they've made in life.
Yeah, it's like listening to, after a breakup, like listening to a sad song over and over again to dwell in your sadness. It's not productive. It feels good to do it. The pain feels good to relive the pain. And we're weird creatures, human beings, but it's not productive, and that's what you see. You see that happening, and it's sad. I mean, honestly, my heart goes out to those guys, because it's a world of pain that they're living in, but they're staying in it. It's like you said, trading they rather keep the bag of shit that they're familiar with. And it's true. And I don't know. I mean, how do you? I've been trying to reach as many men as I can, and the way I look at it is, I'm not here to save the world. I'm here to land my spaceship and then to save the ones that I can, and then the world's going to go careening into the sun. But the people on my spaceship will be all right. But to think you can save the world, I think is too big. I think you'll get discouraged. If you feel like you've got to come up with a solution for this. I'm happy enough if anyone that hears the message says, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm done with this bullshit. I'm done with the victim mindset. I'm done with blaming other people and women and being hateful. I just want to, I want to live a good life. And so what can I do? How can I improve myself? How can I start to, learn how to make some money, how to improve myself, right? Read some good books and just, have a peaceful existence, have some tranquility within my soul. That I'm happy if just a few people make that choice, because it's, I'm glad that I went on this path. If I didn't find this path, maybe I was a bitter person. I was upset at one point and hateful towards people who rejected me and women, and thought that I was a victim. And I remember what that felt like, and it wasn't a good place to be. But, by some fluke of fate, I went off that path, right? I didn't have a mentor or a guide I just kind of stumbled on the path of personal development and self-responsibility. But had I not, I would have been in the same boat. So I can't blame them, to some degree, but I can blame a person for being content enough to stay there when they have an option.
Now, let me talk a little bit about that feminist mindset that we touched upon, the feminist mindset and that MGTOW mindset. So there is a lot of money in being a professional victim. And for example, a lot of YouTube MGTOW content creators make significant incomes, something people don't know. TFM was pulling in, I don't know how it is for him now, but he was pulling in maybe around $150,000 a year between his dollhouse revenue and other things he was doing. Sandman was pulling in, and he said about half of his income. During the years when I was not even maybe putting out insane amounts of content, just off maybe ad revenue from YouTube, I was probably pulling in maybe around almost $50,000 a year. just doing nothing, just putting out, just putting out that content. And it's interesting because I had guys working at 7-Eleven who would give me like $200, $300 sometimes in a single stream, one go.
Yeah.
And the very moment that I said, from one guy, I could walk away from a stream with like $500. These guys would do things like, here, Angry, here's a couple $100 for you. Go enjoy a prostitute, or I'm so serious. This was this is how it was, and
Yeah.
I had a pretty comfortable existence when it came to just dreaming and making money, just giving people what they wanted. But I began to notice that over time, some of the things I started to say began to become a little bit more ridiculous, and I realized that I was beginning to dumb down what I was saying just to give these guys something to chew on. And to this day, some of that stuff they still believe I believed, and maybe I don't know if maybe I believe some aspects or some core, but for example, I made a video once like feminism caused 9/11, and yeah man, and it's just, but it's what they wanted to hear. It didn't matter how, it didn't matter. It just started to feel. I like to consider myself an intelligent guy, but at some point, I realized that I was just starting to say the things that dumb and ridiculous things, and this is what was making me the most money. But at the same time, it was having a personal impact on me, because I was like, dude, you can't. No, you can't keep going. You can't keep saying this crap. I mean, because it's getting inside of your head. Like, maybe am I crazy? Like maybe it really is like this. Maybe these insane, but in reality, it's just that these guys, that's what they wanted. They wanted the most unbelievable, most sensationalized stupidity. And they were happy with that. But the moment you start talking about real world life issues, for example, health and fitness and relationships, it's interesting because their brain, it's like they're like, no, how dare you? And the funny thing is, you said something, and I like to refer to it as grief entertainment. I think I did mention that a moment ago, because I started calling it grief entertainment, because these men are so in love with their grief entertainment. It's their entertainment. And it's interesting because, as you said, working on yourself and so forth, building a business, building up your body, and then relationships. Here's the interesting thing about that, John, that I found. When you start working on your body, start working on your mind, you start working on your financial goals and having a purpose, it becomes more difficult to avoid quality relationships, because I find people start gravitating towards me.
Correct.
I would love you to talk on that.
Say again.
I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. A couple things I'll say also, and here's kind of the funny thing, because probably the reason why you were going down the road of saying things that and feeling bad about the things that you were saying was because it was forcing you to be intellectually dishonest, and that's tough, because that's what money does, right? Money, that influence, that's one of the things where, like, I'm happy that I had already gone through the purpose of retiring, and I've got a lot of passive income in real estate. I don't have to work, is because when I do things with Bulldog mindset, like, I'm not afraid to upset the apple cart anymore, because it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter. Like, I know that video I released yesterday is going to hurt me economically, because so many of my fans like Jordan Peterson, but it doesn't matter. I can only say the intellectually honest thing, because that's what I want, because it doesn't matter, right? And that's the freedom that you can have with financial independence. That's why I preach it to men, right? You are not truly free unless you're financially independent, because you cannot say what you want. You do not have free speech unless you are financially independent, because if someone else is pulling your strings, you can't help it. We're human. We have bias, right? And that's just how it works, right? It's kind of funny though, interesting, when you say, TFM was pulling in big money, $150,000 a year, I kind of laugh. I think that's not big money. I think that's chump change. Like, that's not a legit real business. That's not a lot of money at all. Like, that's like a small amount of money for, I mean, but the reason why I'm even pointing that out, I'm not trying to like belittle, anyone making, I'm trying to say this is that I have so much bigger perspective and dreams for the people that I want to help. I don't want you to just make $150,000. I want you to make $500,000-$600,000. If you build a real legitimate business, right? You can do that. I mean, heck, my bulldog mindset makes a lot more than $150,000 a year just with bulldog mindset, right? Just
John,
from
John, I'm just gonna warn you real quick. There's gonna be some guys you already know that are gonna come after you for saying that 150,000 is a lot of money especially when they're pulling in barely their 30,000. But go ahead.
I understand that, and I'm not saying this as just I'm not saying this as like a character attack on you as a person, as anyone as a person. What I'm saying is that I believe that all of you are better than that, and you can make more money. That's like when you set your bar, when it's like when $150,000 is a lot of money, it is a very limiting belief. It's a very limiting belief system, and the world is much bigger than that. Right now, I can go back to the time where I thought that shit. I remember when I thought that when I was making $25 an hour, I was like, I am the fucking shit. I'm making $25 an hour. That's insane, right? I thought I was fucking rich, right? And I remember the point when I hit $100,000 and I thought that was crazy, and then 200 and so forth. But what I'm saying is that the reason why personal development is so important and financial development is because what you can actually achieve is so much greater than what most people think. Like we are like living in this, most people are living with a very limited mindset with shades on their eyes, with blinders on their eyes, and not seeing what their full potential is, right? It's not very difficult if you build a real solid legitimate business and you know how to do it to build a business that makes $500,000 a year within 4 or 5 years. It's it seems like I understand the perspective where it seems like a lot, but it's really not that much money. And so it's kind of funny. I just think it's funny because, like, again, from the perspective of like everyone in, I think, the MGTOW community maybe worships some of these guys like TFM because they're making so much money doing this thing. And from the real business person perspective, we're kind of laughing at guys like TFM, like, okay, you're making like 150 grand on YouTube. Okay, that's like, it's not a business, dude. It's like nothing. Like that's what I pay in taxes to the state, not to, like, what I mean? Again, I'm not trying to come off as an asshole, but I'm saying that like people who are really focused on personal development and develop themselves and building businesses, we're not looking at that as something, as a respectable thing, right? And that's the thing. It's like, which kind of man do you want to be? Do you want to be the person that's in that community of that guy where $150,000 makes him a god, or do you want to be in a community where that's just like the low bar? That's like the starting bar. And trust me, like if I'm gonna run with racers, right? I run, and I've competed in a lot of different things. I don't want to compete. I don't want to be running with the slow pack, okay, and be the fastest guy in the slow pack or aspire to be the fast. I want to run with the fucking fast pack because I know I'm going to become better. So I want to run with the champions. I don't want to run with the people who are not aspiring great. I want people that are way ahead of me. That's who I want to be around. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point because I think it's really important, because I just thought it was interesting just to hear that perspective. And again, I'm not trying to make fun of you or anyone by saying that. I'm just saying that, like, the perspective does change, and that's one of the things that's very limiting when you're around that environment, is that, again, there was a point in time where I lived in cubicles and I worked in a cubicle, and everyone around me, right? I remember all my coworkers, they're like, oh yeah, you're gonna do what? You're gonna invest in real estate? Okay, yeah, you can't make money investing in real estate. You're gonna lose your ass. Yeah. You can't retire young. You have to like be rich or something like that. Or like, oh, you're gonna build an online business? Okay, yeah, right. No one's gonna pay you for anything online. Like that's just a pipe dream. That doesn't really work. Like you just need to just stick with a regular job like everyone else. And that was their limitation. And for them, it was like, making $150,000 a year at their job was like the top of the best thing they could aspire to in life. And I believe that same thing because I was in that environment. And then when I started hanging around entrepreneurs, people who own businesses, and I was like, wait a minute, like, what, you're just gonna like do this thing, like you're just gonna invest in this thing, and like, and when they're like, oh, the money that they were making made that whole world seem like that was, but that was the world that I was living in before, the cubicle farm world. So anyway, perspectives, change, worldviews change, and it's important to have a bigger worldview, and that's where developing the wisdom education and developing yourself comes from. It comes from that, because we all have limiting beliefs. In fact, what I'm looking at now, I probably have a limiting belief, right? It's, there could be so much more out there. But I just, in going off that tangent, I lost the question you were asking me.
I, I think you answered it somehow in there as well, a little. But when you mentioned the limiting beliefs, for example, and when I said big money, I meant for their community. So I've been talking about this for years, and many people will remember that I've said this, that your $25 is not worth, your $25 an hour is not money. It's not shit. And I've talked about that numerous times. Years ago, once I started to come out of this mindset of all women are evil, all women are bad, and I started to see that it's more so the individuals that are choosing to put themselves in many of these situations. I used to spend years constantly defending, talking about how white men are being marginalized in the United States and Western countries. And I do believe that based on feminist ideology, there's a lot of discrimination happening right now to men. I acknowledge that. And white men are being singled out, because you could never say something like in society, black, it's these black men who are privileged, and people would lynch you. But because it's about white males, it becomes acceptable. But I've also, after talking to a lot of these guys, I start to look at them like, wait a minute, you're crying about your situation, but when you tell me the context of it, you put yourself in this situation, and you're also doing absolutely nothing to change your situation. You can't control you can't control what necessarily happens to you in the world, but you can control how you respond to the things that happen to you, and thereby control your reality. It's insane for me, because I've been at it for maybe around 3 years now, since I basically gave the MGTOW community the middle finger, and they gave it right back. I'll give them their credit there. And for me, it's been really hard building out my business, because I realized that just one source of income is something you can never, ever rely upon. And I keep warning these guys about that. And it's so funny, because all of these guys are sitting at home right now, and many of them, they don't have any income coming from anywhere else. They can't, their jobs are closed in the US, everything's shut down. And what are they going to do? And many of them are still just talking their crap and watching the content. And I've been putting up my videos about making money. They don't give a damn. It's like, not only do they have a defeatist attitude, they're determined to go down. They'd rather go down with the common norm of society than accept that there's more to life. There's more than what you see and what you're hearing, and that you're going to have to adjust the way you think to get there. So for example, you're not going to get to being physically fit. You're not going to get to being financially well off. You're not going to get to improving relationships without actually changing your the way you think. So if you want to start making money, if you want to start working on your body, you have to start changing your mentality. And I think so many of those guys are afraid of that change, because they're set in their ways, and it's what they like, it's what they love.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's, I mean, some of it is because when, a lot of what happens with people is that they don't want to see you improving yourself, because it makes them feel guilty about what they're not doing. Because okay, when you're wasting your whole day just watching MGTOW red pill YouTube videos, and you're not actually working on building a business or writing a book or going to the gym or doing something productive, that you're wasting your life. You know that you're not living to your full potential, and you feel guilty about it. You feel shit, and you don't want to be reminded of that. You don't want to be reminded of your failures. A lot of the reason why these guys are so reactive to any notion of a relationship with a woman is because they feel like they couldn't get one, and so they're justifying it by saying, oh, I don't want one. And that's not really true. Most men do want a relationship with a woman. Now there might be some standards that that a lot of women aren't going to meet, and I'm all for having standards, but it's just not being true to yourself. It's not the reality. And so anything that rubs you the wrong way, that makes it so that you have to face these difficult truths about yourself, right? It's just like, again, on the flip side, what happens to the whole social justice warrior feminist side when you fat shame people? Oh no. Right? Why are people so upset by fat shaming, right? Or what they deem as fat shaming? It's not really shaming, it's just calling out these issues or health issues. It's because it hurts people's feelings, because they don't want to face the truth of the situation. Anytime you give someone the truth, the reality, they are going to fight you to the death about it, right? That's just how people are built, and it's unfortunate, and there's not a lot to be done to overcome that. A person has to choose that they're going to change. Like you said, you found some point where you're like, it was the rock bottom for you, or as low as you're willing to go, and then you said, no, fuck it, I'm not. And I did the same thing. I had this point where, I remember wearing a size 46 pants, going to the store and buying a size 46 pants. And I was like, what the fuck, John? Like, seriously, man, are you real? Like, I looked in the mirror, I was like, dude, you're a fat fuck. Like, you are actually a fat fuck. Like, before you're like making excuses saying you're a little overweight, but you got a lot of muscle. No, you're actually a fat fuck. And you're kind of lazy. Like, you're just playing World of Warcraft. And like, I had to face all these truths about myself. And I was like, you're shy, man. Like, you say that you're like confident, and you're not, you just don't want to talk to a girl. You're actually fucking terrified, and you're a fucking pussy, man. Like, I had to tell myself this shit and face this reality. And then once I did, then it opened up the door to be like, okay, yeah, what else? Like, what else? Well, like, let me see the real things, so I can fix these things, because I can change them and work on them and grow and improve. And that's when my life completely changed and took off. But most people don't want to face those things because they're painful. It's funny. We're just, like I said, I was talking about Jordan Peterson. One of the greatest things that he preached against, which he actually failed, was escapism. Escapism is when you do not want to face your reality, your circumstances in life, and so you do something else. For a lot of guys, MGTOW is escapism. It's how they can escape their lives, because they can live they can ignore the real problems in their life and feel good, and it makes them feel good. Drugs can be escapism, alcohol can be escapism, medication, like depression medication and all kinds of psychoactive drugs, can be escapism, right? Because it allows us to escape the reality of our lives instead of facing them. And it's important that we step up and face it. We say, okay, I want to deal with whatever the fucking problem is, and not just accept that. But like I said, if you show people the truth, you will greatly offend them, and they will fight you.
So it's amazing how you say that. I remember this was more than 10 years ago, and this is basically when I began to really devolve into MGTOW. And I had gotten to a point where I was extremely physically fit, right?
Yeah.
And I was working hard. I had a job at one of the best companies in the US, and I was working on my doctorate in psychology. And it's so funny because at this point, this is when I started. I was basically applying some of the concept of, well, I'm not going to focus on women or relationships, and that'll come later on. But I noticed that while physically I was in an amazing place. I had an amazing body. Women would just look at me and just look at me and look at me. And in terms of my job, I was working for a good company, and I thought that the money I was making was decent, and I was working on my doctorate. But it's interesting that I noticed as I kept on working on these other things, I began to become more and more depressed. And that's because the relationship aspect was missing. And I remember I met this woman who was just totally into me, and we had gone to the same university, and we met each other after we graduated. And I could not even, she was gorgeous. And I thought to myself, wow, this is like, this was the exact thought I had at that time, John. I thought, if I don't do something right now, I'm probably going to regret it for maybe the rest of my life. And I said to myself, oh, well, I'm just going to I'm going to focus on my MGTOW philosophy and just keep on going my own way. And the funny thing is that as I did that more and more and more, and I left out the relationship aspect of building friendships, of building bonds, of being, being even at least friendly with women, because at that point I had completely segregated myself from them. I noticed that I began to become more and more miserable because at the end of the day, I was lying to myself. At the end of the day, I wanted a relationship with a woman. Maybe I didn't want to be married. I'm not married now. Maybe I didn't want to have children, which ironically I do want to have now. But the relationship aspect was still important. And I kept lying to myself. And as I lied to myself, all of those things that I had built, my health, my education, it all began to deteriorate because I was neglecting that other area of the life. You talked about mystery from mystery method, I guess, and I think you may remember that mystery talked about the importance of these three cores: health, wealth, and relationships, and they all have to be in balance. If you try to neglect one, then the whole thing will fall apart. And I think you have some insight there.
Yeah, no, it's very, very true. By the way, I got to get going here in a bit here,
Yeah.
like in a couple of minutes. But yeah, no, it's very true, and that's what I build the foundation on. We know Bulldog mindset focuses on health, wealth, and relationship, and then there's actually the fourth, or the thing that ties them all together, is mindset. I feel like mindset is really the key, because without mindset, you can't have any of those things, and that's why it's so critical, and that's why I focus on. I don't know if you've ever read any Stoic philosophy, but I would recommend reading Seneca's letters to Lucilius, or Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. I think you'll find a huge amount of value in that. I think you would enjoy it a lot. But that's the key, is having that balance and improving in all of those areas of your life, right? It's kind of interesting. I think someone, RT Gaming, said, I do need to work on the body when I'm done with the soul. And what's interesting about that is, if you want to discipline the mind, discipline the body. They're connected, right? So one of the greatest ways to develop mental toughness is through disciplining the body. Go and run, train for a marathon, or train for some, to get on stage as a bodybuilding competitor, right? Doesn't matter if you win. It matters whether or not, going through that, pushing yourself to that limit. In fact, even if you go back to Eastern philosophy and the sages, and you look at the yogis, right? There's three methods to attain, the whole enlightenment, right? Three main yogi methods. One of them is through a study, a devout study of like meditation and scripture, right? Like a religious aspect of it. A second one is through obtaining a large degree of knowledge, right? The sort of wisdom, intellect aspect of it. But the third one is through the body, through the suffering of the body. And so it's interesting that these old kind of cultural philosophies have come across these ideas where these things are connected, where it's like, if you push yourself, right, in one of these areas, these things are connected to the other areas, and really you have to bring them all up, because you will not be complete as a man, right? I always say that there's three core things that a man must need, that every man needs, and he will feel inadequate if he doesn't have them. The first one is to know that you would be willing to die in battle. To have courage is a good way of saying it, right? Have you ever watch a movie and you're like, I don't know, would I go to war? Would I fight? Like, would I be willing to risk my life and die, or would I be a coward? Like, every man has ever questioned himself on that. And if you feel like you would back away from a fight, or you couldn't get into a fight, or you couldn't risk your life in some way, if you feel like you're a coward, you won't feel like a man. The second one is to become financially, I would say, a self-made man, right? To be able to make your own money, to feel like you can provide for yourself, that you're not given some handout, that you're able to be a man who creates his own wealth, right? If you don't feel like you can do that, you will not feel like a man. The third one is to be able to go and and get a woman, right? And not just to go out and, the equivalent of basically being able to cold approach, or to like overcome that fear, and to be attractive to a woman, to be able to attract a high quality woman. If you don't feel like you can do that, again, you're not going to feel adequate as a man. And so those three insecurities of men, if you aren't tackling all three of those, you will feel the loss of it, right? It's not a popular thing for me to say this. I know a lot of people are so opposed to me saying it, but it's when we search our souls and the depth of ourselves as men, we find that these things are true. And I have never found a man that lacked in one of those areas that didn't feel it.
Can you tell us 3 books that you recommend right now?
In general, or like in relation to?
In relation to the bulldog mindset. So building a mindset, building your just toss out 3 books, bro, that you think would be helpful right now to just men and women in general.
Okay, let's start with the one I already mentioned, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I think that's a pivotal book that everyone should read. The next one I'm going to, because I want to introduce you guys to Stoic philosophy, I'm going to choose The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Really, really good book. And yeah, along the same vein. And then the third one, I think I'm going to go with Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. David Goggins is a fucking badass. He's hugely inspirational. He does not accept the victim mindset in the least. And so if you read those 3 books, if that doesn't change your life, if reading those 3 books doesn't change your life, I would be fucking amazed. So
the first one was the first one you mentioned. That was with he was a physician, wasn't he?
Yes, I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So definitely thank you for being on. I'm gonna I'll shoot you some emails later because I definitely would like to look more at your bulldog mindset plan and how your program worked, because I'm in that transitionary phase right now myself, and I'll openly say it, where I went from doing nothing after giving up on life to now scaling up a giant business with my cryptocurrency academy, with my cryptocurrency business. I'm a cryptocurrency developer. I have 2 of my own cryptocurrencies, and also with my my own with my own business in real life. I own a cafe, a club, and we're building a rooftop patio now. But I'm having a hard time piecing that all together and keeping a mindset that allows me to continue pushing ahead. So I'm gonna email you, and I'll see if there's anything that you can help me to tighten up those edges, and then share that with the subscribers. And definitely would love to have you on again, so we can talk more about that later on. But I think that it's important that despite the fact that there's a lot of pushback, it doesn't matter. Like you said, your spaceship, there's always going to be most people probably won't get on. It's like Noah's Ark, but it's really about those people, I think, that choose to get on, that choose to actually make that change. And you can't help the world, you can't change everyone, but if you can change at least 1 people or 2 people or 3 people, not only does that make a difference, but who knows, maybe they can also change someone else.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you having me here, and I appreciate your perspective and your experience. Going from one side to the other, I think that you've got a really important message, and I think you can reach a lot of people that maybe I can't even reach. And so, yeah, I'm happy to do it. Happy to help you as well. So.
Appreciate that. Again, thanks guys for joining us. You can find a link to John's channel, Bulldog Mindset. He puts out regular videos. I've been checking them out. Really great stuff. A lot of very insightful things, helping you to take a further look at yourself and decide what life you want to live, if you want to be in the victim or the victor mindset. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Take care, guys.